Staff, you see any hands up by committee members?
No, there are no hands up.
Right, thank you.
Stites District 7 make a motion to adopt a resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bond sales tax exemption on the construction materials for the 505 Central project.
Second. Gentlemen, thank you. And before we move forward, I do want to ask if there's any other questions from the committee. If not, then I will recognize any members of the public online who wish to address the committee.
We have Rose Ellis online. Ms. Ellis, go ahead.
Ms. Ellis, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments.
That's fine. It's really kind of a question. My name is Rose Iltz. I live on Strawberry Hill. And I read through the packet that was, for this meeting. And on a page, I think it's 50, probably 54, there's some reference that makes it sound like the unified government is going to own this property. Did I misread that? I'm trying to find the exact location of the part.
So the way industrial revenue bonds work, no, the unified, I guess the short answer is no, the unified government will not own the property. But basically what we do is we're providing the developer, and we do this with anytime you get sales tax exemption on construction bonds. It's kind of a quick pass through the unified government. So we're providing them with kind of our tax exemption status for that time during the construction while they're purchasing those materials. So it never does the unified government actually own the property, but there is some, Patrick may be able to explain better how that functions.
Yeah, it used to be under the old law that you would actually take ownership while the bonds were outstanding, but the state legislature changed that. It's now a leaseback structure, which is purely a legal vehicle, again, as Catherine said, so that they can use our tax exempt status, but we have no actual property interest in it.
Okay, would it make sense to reword that? Because that's sure how it reads.
I'm happy to talk with our bond counsel for future resolutions if there's a way that we can clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any
There are
other-
no other hands raised.
Thank you. I'll now recognize anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. You will be given 3 minutes. Let the record show nobody is present wishing to speak. With that, we do have a motion and a second. I ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Haley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. That takes us to item number 2. And that's a resolution setting just the hearing in reference to the 505 Central Avenue redevelopment project plan for October 27th. This has been asked to be fast-tracked, as it was stated, to the September 15th full commission meeting. And I believe Ms. Carter will make any other additional comments you have?
Yeah, no other comments. Thanks.
Any comments from the committee? Members? Okay, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I just on that slide, it says the 14th. Just this slide, it says the 14th. So as long as we
Whatever Thursday is. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk if there were any comments received from the public.
No comments received.
Again, I just will ask of anyone present this evening in the audience would like to speak to the resolution. Let the record show no one has stepped forward. Again, this is just to set the public hearing for 505. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
Stites District 7 make a motion to adopt resolution for the public hearing for October 27th to be fast-tracked toward the full commission 9/15 this coming Thursday.
Davis, second.
We have a motion and a second. I'd ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Haley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Those are our two action items. I believe this takes us to item number 3, which is our second quarter 2022 cash investments, and our deputy treasurer. Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea,
Andrea, thank you. Andrea.
thank you.
Andrea, for the second quarter cash investments. This is for information only. Ms. Vineyard, please. Difficulty here.
Thank you.
Just whenever you're ready.
Okay, yep, Andrea Vineyard, Deputy Treasurer. This will be the Q2 2022 investment report. First slide here, just going to go over a few metrics. Average yield for that quarter was 0.43. And then days to maturity was at 143 days, going down a little bit from Q1 of 2022. And of the portfolio, we're sitting at 82% in cash, and then the rest would be investments. As stated, the last slide, the yield was at 0.43. Last quarter of quarter 21, or excuse me, 22, Q1 was at 0.44, very small change. Still below our target T-bill rate, which was at 2.79 for that quarter. As always, I like to represent the compliance that we follow within our limits of our institution. In the past, that was an issue. We've kept that under wraps for about the last 3 years, which is a goal of ours. Still there as of Q2, under the limit. Of our portfolio, we have 327 million. Of that, we are sitting at about 18% in CDs, which comes to about 59 million. And in this quarter, we still did not have any federal agency securities. The rest was in the cash for the overnight and the health reserve account. Transactions from Q2, we only had one. We did have a Commerce Bank CD mature in May. That would have been for 4 million. Last but not least, I'll quickly go over that, as these two to my right and left will go a lot deeper into that here in the next item. Fund balance for cash for the 24% is in the bond documents, capital projects, 25% of the general fund. Then we've got 13% in the enterprise funds, carrying to 32% in restricted funds such as the grant fund, tax levy, and internal fund. And then we have 6% sitting in the annual debt service payments fund. Actually, all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Committee, any questions? I do have a question, if I may, Andrea.
Of course.
You broke down, I'm looking at page 6, how you broke it down to 24%, 25% general fund. There was a question the other day in reference to our reserves, defined reserves, and maybe I'm a little mistaken, and I'm looking for some clarity. But and Debbie, this may be towards you and Reggie also. When we were having a budget discussion the other night, we talked about our reserves, and we have 2 months equivalent of reserves in our budget. And I thought it was on us to also have an additional month in emergency reserves. And I was to understand that we don't have the additional month in emergency reserve.
I think I'm trying to remember what we had. I think when were we looking at the 2020, how we ended the year of 2021. I don't remember exactly what that percentage was, but I believe we had met the 2-month reserve. Now I'll have to go back and.
So how the Reginald Lindsay, Budget Director. So how the policy reads is that it's mandatory that we try to keep the 17%. And in ideal times, we try to build up to the 25% when we can. So we're not out of compliance if we don't have the 25% for the general funds, that is.
Well, when I read this 25% general fund combined reserves to meet operating liquidity, that's above the 17% that we have for 2 months. And I was just curious if we have that third month funded for emergency purposes.
And when we budget the reserve, which is the fund balance, that's the reserve that we're talking about. Here, we're actually talking about the cash balance at the end of June 30th. So when we talk about the fund balance policy, we want at the end of the year, when all the revenues have come in, all the expenses gone out, we want still sitting in our account that 17%, which is the 2-month reserve. But yeah, during the year that can fluctuate depending on when revenues come in and when they go out. Everything doesn't come in on a monthly basis. Some stuff comes in equally on a monthly basis, but there's other items that are maybe seasonal or like property tax. We get we probably have 90% or more of the property tax collected by the end of the second quarter. So it can vary from month to month or quarter to quarter.
Any other questions?
And this is
Commissioner
Stites, District 7. So this was a reflection, obviously, of quarter 2, at the end of quarter 2. So that 25% more than likely will not be the same at the end of quarter 3, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, as I stated, any comments from staff?
No comments
As I
received.
stated, this was for information only. And so do we have any remote comments from public?
No one has their hands raised.
Anybody present want to speak? Let the record show no one was present. Okay, that takes us to, thank you, Andrea, appreciate it very much. This takes us to item number 4. If I remember correctly, that would be the second quarter budget to actuals. And I believe we have Debbie and Reginald here this evening to present. And this item also is for information only. So please, at your convenience.
Good evening, Commissioners. Debbie Johnsher, Deputy CFO. And as you said, tonight we're here to report the second quarter budget to actual. We bring this information to the standing committee on a quarterly basis. So I will be covering the revenues and then I will turn it over to Reginald Lindsay, our budget director, to cover the expenses. So this first one is just the consolidated general fund overview. And just a reminder, the consolidated general fund includes the city general fund, the county general fund, and the parks general fund. So as you can see, this table is a comparison of second quarter year-to-date actuals. The first part of the graph shows the fiscal year 2021, and then the second half is fiscal year 2022. As you can see in 2021, at this point, we were at 58% collected on revenues, and for this year, we're at 62%. On the expenditures, we were at 46.8% of budget at 2020 in 2021, and then we're at 48% for 2022. We started the year, year-to-date fund balance, I guess, for fiscal year 2022, we are at $73,628,000. This next graph, the next 2 graphs are going to be, I'm going to just talk specifically about the city general fund. So the first graph on your left shows the budget to actual, and it breaks down all the different revenues for the city general fund. Our total budget for 2022 was $161.5 million. Year to date, we have revenues collected are $89.6 million with a total 55.5%. You can see property, as I said, with property tax by the end of the second quarter, we've collected the majority of the property tax. So we're sitting at 94.1%. Sales tax, we're at 50.9%. So sales tax is currently tracking very close to right on budget. Our other taxes, which would include franchise taxes, we're at 54.6%. Let's see, the one that I'll just point out, the intergovernmental revenues you'll see is 6.1%. And I do believe that the reason for that is intergovernmental revenues is where we had the ARPA revenue budgeted. And if you recall, this year we did make an adjustment to the ARPA revenue. So the amount that we had budgeted here, I believe, is still showing the total budget. And so that's why it's only showing at 6.1%, because that lost revenue that's budgeted there does not have any expenses or very little. Charges for service is at 47.2%. The largest category in this area is the residential trash and recycling. And then we've got fines and fees at 40% and miscellaneous at 46%. The graph on your right, it just shows a comparison of 2021 to 2022. The blue is the prior year, the red is the current year, and then the dotted line is the 50% mark showing where we would be. And it just shows each one of these categories. So as you can see, property, it kind of aligns with the graph. Property tax is well above, almost at 100%. Sales and other taxes are right around the 50% or a little bit higher. Any questions on either one of those?
Committee, any questions in reference to the first part of the presentation?
Yes.
Seeing that-
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Haley.
Thank you so much. The question is, for the revenues that are generated, would the payment in lieu of taxes be? And I know that it was in reference to, or we did have the reference line to like the trash fees, but would that be along the line of this presentation where that revenue is generated?
Yeah, go back. Yes, the payment, the pilot would show up in the other tax category. If that's what you were asking. The trash fee,
Yeah.
the residential trash fee is under charges for service. The pilot fee is under the other tax category.
Okay, and I'm sorry, using this Zoom, I'm unable to see the chart. I can do one or the other, and so it's gone from me. But what is that line item? If you could share that with us, please, again. The
other tax category, the budget, the revenue budget was 51.4 million. And we've currently collected a little over 28 million at 54.6%. And this would be the category that the pilot would be under.
All right. So at some point subsequent, will there be something that shows how those revenues collected for the pilot would have been dispersed, or everything just goes into hodgepodge, into the city general fund? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, the pilot is deposited to the city general fund.
But it's collected for a specific purpose. Is that not true? We're collecting the pilot.
We are collecting the pilot for, I mean, it goes to offset expenses within the city general fund.
Right. There's been some question as to what the origin of the pilot was intended to do and what it was to be applied to. And I just didn't know.
Mr. Haley, if
Yes.
I may, this is Chairman Burrows. I believe what your question initially was, where is the pilot reflected on the chart? And if I understood staff correctly, it's in the category, it says other tax. Is that correct, staff? And that money goes into the general fund to be dispersed through wherever the staff says it needs to be set within the general fund. And so I don't know if I understand your question fully, but I want to give staff a fair opportunity to understand the question and to give you a fair response.
I will say.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when we deposit the pilot, it doesn't go to a specific department or fund. It is used to pay operating expenses across the entire general fund. So if you may have a department that collects a specific revenue, that would go back to a specific department. But for the pilot, similar to the sales tax and the property tax, those are spread out to offset all general fund expenses.
Okay, so thank you both for that clarity. My understanding was that there was at its inception, the reason for the collection of the pilot was to offset a specific purpose, and I'm getting some clarity that that's not the case. It is a general fund initiative or general fund revenue that comes back in, that there is no reason from its inception that it would go back to alleviate a particular part of the city or of the county, the unified government's expenses. It could be anything.
That's my understanding. I don't know if legal would have a different interpretation, but okay.
Yeah.
No, that's our understanding.
Well, thank you both for the clarity. Thank you both for the clarity.
Yeah. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I think what Senator Haley's getting at is something that I agree. I think we need more information on the origin of the pilot. Because I think to this day, there's not a clear answer on kind of where it originated from and what purpose it serves. I've heard that the pilot is kind of this fee that offsets the cost of doing business between BPU and the unified government. I've also heard the pilot being used as a payment in lieu of taxes, that tax being property taxes on entities that do not pay taxes, which would be, right, BPU, would be your nonprofits, your churches, your educational institutions, and what have you. So there's a variety of definitions of the purpose, but this is collecting like $35 million. I think it would be prudent upon us to get some answers on what the genesis, what the origin of it is, and then what the legal language of the pilot is that kind of backs it up. And so don't have to get that now, but I think at some point, at least to this committee, if not to the full commission, that could be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, we can provide that.
Commissioner Davis, I will answer some of your question about the pilot. So utility companies, they do collect the franchise tax. And so since BPU is, since it's owned by the citizens, we don't have a franchise tax that we collect from them. And other utility companies that we collect the franchise tax from, they also have property within a county or city that they would reside in. And you also get property tax from them for that. So the pilot is a way to help us collect a franchise tax and also recognize a property tax. And not saying that we have to do it or anything like that, but that is a way that pilots are used across the country.
And I'm sorry, I don't, my screen has changed. This is Haley again.
Yes.
And I appreciate that clarity. This is greatly educational for me, and I appreciate Commissioner Davis helping me to try to better articulate my concern. I thought, or I think that there is a franchise fee line item currently on the BPU bill, independent of the pilot. I'd have to go back. I don't have my bill or other bills in front of me, but so there'd be more than one franchise fee if that's the case, one being the pilot or part of that, and the other being the line item that speaks to a fee, a franchise fee.
Yeah. David, is that a question to staff?
Whomever, and again, I don't want to look, this is for informational purposes tonight, Mr. Chair. I don't want to belabor this with that one issue, but I do hope at some point in time, because there's a general question and concern among the public as to what the pilot is, how long it's supposed to be extracted, if there is a shelf life for the pilot, how is it applied when it goes into the general fund, what does it offset? And these are questions that I'll just say that I may be alone, but that I've heard from within our tax base. And so this is I don't know if there's a better time to ask it, but this may not be the appropriate time, but I would hope that at some point in time we can get some clarity on those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7, and Senator Haley, I totally agree with you. That this is a tax that really is just another a way to generate funds for the city general fund. We have Edwardsville, we have Bonner Springs paying into that fund. It doesn't go into a county fund, it goes into Kansas City, Kansas fund. And I do think that we need to look at how we eliminate this pilot that is just another source of revenue and putting on the backs of our taxpayers if we need to look at it. And I appreciate the way that it's framed, that we need to find out why it was created, how long, and what the purpose was. But I'm in favor of eliminating it totally. Thank you.
Okay. Committee, any other comments before we move on with the presentation? Reggie, thank you for that overview. And I know that I think one of our presentations last week talked about the average pilot by utility companies. There was a certain percentage, I want to say it was like 5 to 7%. And we are at 11, I believe 11.5, 11.9. So I think that was some of the reasoning behind the question, but thank you for that comment. And could you come back with that average again for us in reference to the information that Commissioner Davis and Haley and Stites requested? Commissioner Stites.
And here's what I will think is, or what I want to say also is that I believe it has a cap at 15. So there's still room for that this thing can go up even more. So that's all.
And I believe you are correct. I believe
Yes.
the resolution states between 5 and 15%.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, no hands, anything like that, please continue with city is a little ahead of itself. We're 5 basis points ahead of our 50% mark for the second quarter. So that's good news. One other question, if I may, the property tax is at 94.1%. When will the second tranche of the property tax come in? Is it in December?
The two largest distributions have already occurred. The January and the June are the largest. And then there's a small March distribution, as well as there's a September and an October distribution.
So we anticipate that 94.1% could be well over 100, probably 105%.
Right. The remaining collections would be, I believe, well, the September collection would be anything when they're processing the distribution, there's a cutoff date. So any payments that came in after that cutoff date are processed on the next distribution. So, and then usually the final distribution in October is usually just a delinquent collection. So it's usually a small.
Okay. Well, that's good news for the city budget. As you well know, it's been quite the challenge this year. Thank you. Reggie?
So and this next slide is just some more comparison from 2021 second quarter year-to-date actuals to 2022. So as you can see, for the second quarter, we're actually 4.8 million. We've collected 4.8 million more in 2022 than we did in 2021. The next two slides are the county general fund. Same information that I presented for the city. So you will see that the graph on the left shows all of the property or all of the revenues for the county general fund in detail. We have a total of 75 million budgeted, and we're currently for second quarter, we are at 56.6 million. So we've collected on average 75.5%. Property tax again is at 94%. Sales tax is 51%. The other tax, which for the county general fund would include motor vehicle as well as any IRB, and that was also on the city also, but that's at 62%. Let's see, charges for service is 44.7%, and fines and fees are at 45%. And then the graph just shows each one of those categories comparing to the prior year. Once again, the blue is the prior year, the red is the current year, and the dotted line is the target of 50% for the second quarter. This last one just shows another comparison. So we are pretty close to where we were last year with collections. As you can see, for the total between 2021 and 2022, we've collected 582,000 more in 2022 than we did at the same time last year. Now I'm going to turn this over to Reginald Lindsay, our budget director, to talk about expenditures.
So the first expenditures that we're going to look at are the city general fund. In the top right-hand corner, the view we have, we're looking at the 2022 budget as it compares to the actuals that we have in the second quarter of 2022. And a good rule of thumb is we should be below 50% on our expenditures. So we can see in personnel that we are at 48%. Services, we are right at 50%. And supplies, we're at 55%. And some of the things that are paid for them from supplies here are like our utility bills, also our fuel, and also our parts and supplies. And those costs have been up, and that's one of the reasons we are up over the budget that we have spent of about 6% almost. And the next category is the grants and claims, and then miscellaneous transfers in and out. And then we have capital outlay that is at 28%. And one of the reasons capital outlay hadn't been spent at the 50% level is because a lot of our capital projects that go on during the warm weather months. And we also had the Cyber incident. So some of the projects are not tracking as fast as they traditionally have. So that's one of the reasons the capital outlay is at about 30%. In the next chart down here in the bottom right-hand corner is a comparison that last year, second quarter actual. So we're comparing 2021 and 2022, and we can kind of see where personnel is up about 10% compared to last year. And then our services are actually down compared to last year. So one of the things going on there is actually the budget. So just some things aren't happening because of the Cyber incident, and some of the contractual expenditures that need to be spent are just hadn't been spent yet. And then supplies. And then our supplies are up about 20%. And then our capital outlay is up about 62% compared to last year. And one of the reasons is that our budget was a larger one compared to last year's budget. So that's one of the reasons for that. Next slide is our county general fund. And
Richie, before we move forward, are there any questions from the committee in reference to the 2021, 2022 city general fund actuals, budget actuals? Seeing none. Please, Richie.
so at the top right-hand corner, county general fund expenditures, comparison of the chart here, we're looking at the 2022 original budget and comparing it to what we have spent so far, year-to-date actuals through the second quarter of 2022. And rule of thumb here again is we're looking to be under 50% on expenditures, and we can see like out of the 6 categories, we have spent almost 50%, which is a good thing as far as we aren't over budget. One of the categories where we have spent more than 50% is services, and this is related to funding that we paid out for the Cyber incident, just contractual services that we had to contract out. And then our supplies we're at about 43%. Our grants and claims are at 46%. And then miscellaneous transfers are 42%. And then our capital outlay is at about 31%. And if we compare to last year's budget down in the right-hand corner, 2021 second quarter compared to 2022 second quarter, we can see that we're about 10% above what we spent last year. And then services, we're about 5% above. Then we have our supplies, where we're about 52% above. So all in all, the budget, we've ended up spending about 10% more than we did last year. Any questions about any of the spending in the county general fund?
Yeah, I'll just state that it's always good to see our expenditures below our revenue. So that's looks like we're right on target on the expenditures on the county side. So that's not a bad thing. And actually, we're below expenditures on the city at this particular time too, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yes.
So that's good news as we move into the budget. So any other questions, comments from the committee? Hearing none, seeing none?
Oh, I wasn't there. There are a couple more slides.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were ready to wrap it up. I'm sorry.
No.
So this current slide is a comparison of our other tax levy funds that do include the city general fund and the county general fund. And on the left-hand side of the page, we're comparing revenues, and on the right-hand side of the page, we're comparing expenditures. So one of the rules of thumb is we're looking for revenues to be above 50% and expenditures to be below 50%. And so we can see total UG tax levy funds are at about 64%. So we have collected more than 50% here. So that is a good thing. And then over the expenditure side, we can see overall the UG tax levy fund, the whole category is about 43% of the budget has been spent. So, and none of them are over 50%. So any questions about any of those tax levy funds?
Any questions, comment? When you look at these numbers, they're not bad numbers to review at first, halfway through the year.
So current slide is a view of our other special revenue tax funds, and there's about 19 funds here. So the blue column, which is on the left-hand side, are the revenues, and then orange shading column these are our expenditures. And so our expenditures, we should be tracking below 50%, and revenues, again, we should be tracking over 50%. And we can kind of see down looking at total funds, we're at about 60%. And then if we go over to the expenditures, we see that total funds, we're at about 42%. We do have a couple of funds that have spent more than 55%, parks and recreation being one of them. And then also Registered Deeds Technology Fund. And one of the things that happens is Registered Deeds Technology Fund, they do encumber their funding for contracts for their computer software early in the year. So that's referenced there. And then one thing is parks. They start to get ready for the park season. So they do start to spend some of their money a little bit earlier. So that's why they would be over by a little bit. And same thing down here with Sunflower Hills, they are over the 50%, they're 57%. So they do spend a bulk of their money within the warm weather. So that is why they have spent more than the 50%.
Commissioner Stice with a question.
Yep. So obviously the one that sticks out on this chart would be the one that says jail commissary that's at 222.2. Why is that so out of whack?
So that is basically they definitely have brought in more revenue than we have forecasted.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know right off what the reason is. It could be that our forecast is low there. So this is something we probably do need to
So
check.
how does that compare to 2021's forecast
In
in that category?
I don't know that right off.
All right.
I don't know that for jail commissary right off.
Just okay. All right. Thanks.
Reggie, help me understand. I'm going back looking at the revenues and expenditures on this item here, and down at the bottom, I see 413,000 or 413. I'm assuming that's 413 million. And then 396 million on the revenue side. Are we projected to spend 23 more million than what you see at the bottom? Am I reading that wrong?
Currently, that is the forecast and how we built that budget in 2022. But one thing I will add is that with all those funds that the spending on the expenditure side, there was fund balance to build those budgets at those amounts.
And am I to understand that ARPA is in this revenue side?
That's correct.
So it would also show up in the expenditure side if it has been spent.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Because that could be why there's a variance in numbers at first blush. But I'm looking at we're 42.5% of expenditures, but yet we're almost 61% of revenue. So that's a 20% difference, or a 19 basis points difference, if I'm reading that correctly. And just want to ensure that we're tracking, not to bust this budget, but if we're ahead in revenues, we should be able to, with the limited expenses that I've seen in the earlier projections, at the very least become revenue neutral.
And I will just note, with the ARPA funds, the majority, those were split out to all the different funds, but the majority of that was within the city and county general funds.
Great, thank you. Any questions from other committee members? Any questions from staff? Any other comments? Seeing none. Thank you. This is important information as we go into the budget work this next week. And thank you for your patience with the commission in reference to the questions they posed to you. We appreciate it very much. That is, again, for information only. I believe that there is no other initiatives or subject matter before the committee this evening. So that does conclude the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Davis moved to adjourn.
Haley second.
So we have a motion and a second. I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Haley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you. And please stay with us. We do have the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee following this meeting with Chair Commissioner McKiernan. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows. I appreciate that. We will go ahead and transition. I want to thank Senator Haley for being a member of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee. We will go ahead and transition over to.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, sir. To Neighborhood and Community Development. And before I call the meeting to order, I want to remind everyone that due to COVID-19, committee members, staff, and public may be attending remotely via Zoom, as well as being on site. All participants who are joining by phone or by Zoom should mute their devices when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, we ask that everyone please make sure you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so that the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. As I said, the public may participate by Zoom during the meeting and will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments from the 5th floor meeting room in the municipal office building. With that, we'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee, and I'd ask the clerk to call roll, please.
Roll call, Stites,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
Burrows,
Here.
McKiernan.
Here. Thank you. The first item is revisions to tonight's agenda. I do not believe any revisions were released after the agenda was first published. And if the clerk could just confirm that, please.
You are correct.
Thank you so much. Our next item then is approval of our minutes from our meeting of April 4th, 2022.
Stites motion to approve.
Burrows, second.
There's a motion and a second to approve those minutes as submitted. I'd ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Roll call. Stites. Davis.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much, committee. We only have one item on our agenda tonight, and that is transfer of real property and intergovernmental transfer. And so for that, I'm going to turn the floor over to our land bank manager, Judd. And for some reason, I don't see Judd in my list of participants.
He's here in person, Commissioner.
Oh, well, that's why I don't see him there. Hello, Judd. If you
Hello,
would please
Commissioner.
take it away.
Yes, so tonight I kind of want to do two things. I want to, first, all these properties, the 22 that are listed are just to clean up the land bank's inventory. They're all right-of-way properties that are going to be transferred to the unified government. Second thing is I want to kind of show off a new tool that we've been working on that should improve our community engagement and reduce our staff time too. So what you do is you come over here, you click on one point, and it zooms in for you. So you have all the information here that you would have on my regular PowerPoints. And the beauty of this is all ran off surveys. So the applicant fills this out for me. So I don't have to make a PowerPoint again. I'm gonna help people build homes. Yeah. So as you go, all these are right-of-way properties that are they're just in the road, and they just are just cleaning up my inventory. And this one is there's a bunch of them there. This has a bunch of features on it, like down here, there's layers that you could like turn on and off, like the neighborhood groups, commission districts. So as a commissioner, you could put on your district and see what items are actually in your district from this map. So that's it.
I guess it's not you anymore. I was motioning to you. I have a question.
Yes,
Commissioner Stites
Commissioner
has a
Stites.
question. There we go.
So Stites District 7. So does the planning and zoning commissioners also have access to this?
Everyone has access to
Everybody.
this.
Everybody's got it. Perfect. I like it. Good job. I like it. And making things easier to navigate and more fluid, and that we can streamline this process is a lot better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will echo Commissioner Stites. Judd, as you and I have already talked about when you presented this in agenda review, I think this is a tremendous step forward in terms of the tools that we have available to us. Remind me again, can we turn the zoning overlay on with this?
Yes, we can.
And Commissioner Stites, back to what you had said a moment ago, I think that is even more powerful in terms of planning commission, because now they can see the actual zoning designation for each of these parcels. And so it just adds more richness of information. And I really do appreciate all of this. One of the things that Judd has been working on is continuing to clean up our inventory, making sure that parcels in the land bank are actually land bank parcels and not, in this case, right of way. That should not be considered to be part of the land bank, but simply part of the land that the unified government owns on either side of public right-of-ways. And so, Judd, I appreciate the work that you've been doing to clean up our inventory and make sure that what we demonstrate to the public is in fact what's in the bank and potentially available for people to acquire. Does any other member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp? Hearing none, seeing none, I'd ask the clerk if we had any comments from the public regarding this item.
No public comment received.
I'd ask if there's anyone who's present in the fifth floor meeting room would like to make comment on this item.
We have no members of the public in the room.
Thank you. And then I'd ask if there's anyone who's online by Zoom who'd like to offer public comment on this item. And I see no hands there. And so, committee, I'd ask if there is a motion on this item.
Commissioner Burrows, at-large District 2, move for approval.
Davis, second.
Thank you so much. There's a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Stites, Davis,
Aye.
Townsend. Aye. Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Thank you, committee, for the work. I think this is a tremendous tool. That is the last item on our agenda. I would
Chair?
entertain a motion. Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Before we go, I just wanted to give an update on the land bank listening sessions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure we have this on record, and Ashley Hand and our communications team have done a phenomenal job. But we have 3 listening sessions for the land bank that's going to be available for the public. For commissioners, just to know, I've already notified legal. We're good as far as not having to abide by any quorum or anything. There's going to be a special notice that's sent out, so as many of us can come to as many meetings as possible. But there are 3 dates that I just want to throw out there for the public. The first session is going to be October 18th. That's a Tuesday, 6:30 to 8 at Eisenhower Community Center. The second session is going to be Tuesday, October 25th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Beatrice Lee Community Center. And the last one's going to be Tuesday, November 1st, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Argentine Community Center. There'll be other opportunities, but those are the 3 that are coming up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Davis, I certainly would like to acknowledge and express my appreciation for all the work that you are doing to really embrace taking a deep dive look at our land bank and making sure that it serves everyone's needs as best it can. Much appreciated work. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Davis, second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Stites,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Townsend. Aye. Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee.